When I say coaching, pickleball coaching, one name has got to come to mind, and that is Cameron Taylor. Cam Taylor started TPA, or Taylored Pickleball Academy, several years ago. It is by far one of the most respected and recognized names in the coaching industry here in the game of pickleball. He also has a vacation arm where you can go and play pickleball, get coached in some of the most exotic places on planet Earth. I had a great chat with Cam Taylor recently, and I know you're going to enjoy this conversation on today's episode. Well, Cameron, good morning and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Kitchen Conversations, and thanks for being here. I took a moment this morning and I asked ChatGPT to tell me how busy Cameron Taylor was, and I'd be interested in your reflection on what it had to say. It said, "This isn't a guy running a few clinics on the side. This is a full-scale operation, year-round programming, multi-location camps, private coaching, leagues, international training trips, and on top of that, building a brand that's positioning itself as one of the premier pickleball academies in the country." And I thought that was pretty flattering.
Yeah,
Would you agree?
I mean, I can I steal that and put that up on our website and my LinkedIn bio there. That's great. I mean, the one hesitation I would have on that is I definitely haven't built this brand and this business by myself. I have my wife, Colleen, who's a huge part of it, as well as we have a director of operation, Nadine Hughes, who works full-time in our business. And we have an amazing team of coaches and individuals that we have involved with us as well. So, I mean, for them to be able to go in and pull that, I mean, I'm definitely not doing all of that by myself, but I mean, I appreciate the respect that we're receiving. I'm also, and what's not pulled up there is I also do NCCP facilitation. So I travel all around Ontario and Canada, facilitating coach the coaches opportunities, which is great too. So.
Yeah. Well, Cam, you've done it all and you're doing it all. And I know when I first started the game here in Kingston at the Kingston Pickleball Club, one of the first names that kind of floated up to the surface was Cam Taylor, and I know you've got a connection with the club in some way and through Ryan Haynes, Pam Bidnost, and some of the founding members. And so I've kind of known you through name for quite a while. So it's a real pleasure to get a chance to spend a few minutes with you this morning. And I also want to thank you not only for your time this morning, but for bringing guys like Ken Pekarski into the game and into the coaching world. And Ken and I met at a tournament, a True North tournament in Kingston, and he's just become a buddy. And, I think the game is better off with more people like Ken being out there and coaching, and his philosophy and his approach. And so I want to thank you for that as well. You saw something there early on, and I appreciate you doing that with Ken. So,
well, yeah, there's definitely some flashbacks there with the Kingston Pickleball Club. Ryan and I go way back. We used to play in quite a few tournaments together. We would do some traveling, and we actually started doing some coaching and stuff together. So yeah, definitely. And Pam, another flashback name there as well. To long before the facility in Kingston was built, we were working out of the curling club there in Kingston and doing some stuff in Vista Center, I think, it was where nationals and stuff. So yeah. I mean, Ken Pekarski, what a guy. We're so lucky to have him. He's been with us. Since we kind of started to expand this from an I business to a we business. Ken's been a huge part of that, and I mean, he takes on a variety of different hats and roles. We're extremely lucky to have Ken, for sure.
Yeah, well, you'll notice the backdrop to the screen today, and that won't necessarily be the final edit, but at the very bottom corner by you, it says all-round nice guy, and that was at the request of Ken Pekarski. So he reached out, and he said, "Would you mind doing this for me this morning?" I said, "Absolutely, my friend." So that's the root of that little note there at the bottom of the page.
Well, as long as you go back and tell him that he has the greatest veneers in pickleball, I mean, he has best smile in pickleball, and you already know what I'm talking about, right? So
yeah, I certainly do. Yeah, well, I've had a chance to do a podcast with Ken. I've got Pam. We did her and featured her on the podcast last week, Cam, and I've got Ryan booked to come on. Of course, his new role with Pickleball Canada and all that he's taken on, and it'll be a fascinating conversation. So yeah, well, listen, great start to this morning, and I appreciate all of that. If you don't mind, I'd like breaking these conversations down, Cam, into three kind of rallies to keep in the spirit of the game. And in rally one, I'd love to talk a bit about your background, your working career, maybe some of the sports that you've played in the past that brought you into pickleball. And then in rally two, I want to jump into this great game. I mean, it's a game that it's changed my life. And I know personally others who it has done the same for. It's just a game changer. It's a life changer. And so I want to hear your passion for that. And then rally three, I'd like to spend as much time as we can there talking about Taylored Pickleball, talk about the academy, talk about your camps, your vacation packages, and all that you're doing there. And I know that's evolving. We talked a bit off camera, so we definitely want to get into that in Rally 3. So that aside, can I invite you to start with Rally 1? Give me a sense of your background, if you don't mind, Cam, and kind of some of the things you did growing up as a kid and the sports that you loved, as a Canadian kid growing up here in this great country.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I mean, so it's interesting. I mean, growing up from like a work standpoint, I was always in entrepreneur mode. Like my parents had businesses growing up, so I was always working in those. Um, as part of that, I then started to explore what I wanted to do as I grew up, and firefighting was going to be a passion of mine. I went to school for firefighting. I went to school for paramedic as well. I was a volunteer firefighter in Sauble Beach, where I grew up for 13 years. Um, During that time frame, I also started to transition into restaurant management, and I was in restaurant management for about 15 years. And that's kind of where, during that period of time, I started to find pickleball was, I happened to be available during the day, during the week. As a manager of restaurants, I was primarily working evenings and weekends. So I was able to kind of, when pickleball was being played, I actually happened to be available, which was very rare at that time for somebody in my age category. So it kind of worked out naturally there. But where that work background, whether it was the firefighting or whether what it was the restaurant management, really allowed me to kind of launch into pickleball. Is I've always been in the customer experience business, and to me, being a pickleball coach or provider of pickleball programs or events or vacations or camps or whatever we do, ultimately we're still in the customer experience business, and the medium that we're using is just pickleball at this point. So I've had this background of talking to people, working with people, engaging with people, providing positive experiences, and it's that mindset that I've taken into what we do in pickleball that I think has really lent us to being successful.
Yeah. Well, there's so many parallels that you can draw in life and pickleball, I think, Cam. And I see them, constantly. And the friendships that you forge, on the court are lifelong. And they seem to be quick, and we'll get into a bit of that maybe this morning as we get into Rally 2. But yeah, it's just such a game. And, the moment you step on the court, you're done. I think I warn people, if you step on the court, there's no turning back. That door will shut behind you. And from that point forward, you're going to be in it for life. So as a kid growing up, was there one other sport that kind of you would highlight as being the one that you thought maybe there's a future in this for me? Was it basketball, volleyball, anything like that? Did you play hockey as a kid?
Yeah, so I mean, I always say my sport background is volleyball. So that's the sport I grew up, playing competitively. I played it a little bit post secondary. I also stayed involved in volleyball from a coaching standpoint as well as a refereeing standpoint. So I'm a level 3 volleyball referee. So I would do, um, college and university matches. I would be involved in the Canadian nationals and provincials here in Ontario, and that was my ability to stay into that game at a high level. But yeah, I find there is a lot of transferable skills from volleyball to pickleball. As much as people always say, like, hey, if you have great racket sport backgrounds, I think there's some really great synergies coming from volleyball as well. But I'm assuming anybody who's got a sport that background says it translates well. So
Yeah, fascinating. Well, volleyball was a big part of my wife and I. We had two boys who played high school volleyball. One of them won OFSA gold one year, which was a big deal, AAA,
yeah,
and went to the big show, if you will, for high school. But I'm not afraid to tell you, but I hope no one else is listening, that I cried at that last game, that last high school game, because I knew neither of the boys were going on to post high school sports in any particular way, pick up stuff and some rec league stuff. But yeah, it was a moment as a parent, to be on the bench and know that was the final game for the kids. It was a bit of a heart tug for me for sure. But it's interesting to hear you say that about volleyball, Cam. I don't think anyone's mentioned anything other than racket sports being sort of a helpful start to the game of pickleball. So soccer, I think maybe has come up on a podcast or two about footwork. Um, is there something specific about volleyball that you would say lends itself to pickleball when you say that?
yeah. Like I mean, I think one of the really really interesting ones for me is like when we think about our defensive positioning, right, and how as a volleyball player you set blocks on edges to kind of be into the court and stuff. So having your paddle prepared in a position almost like you were blocking. um, the ability to relate to people about how you would do a push block versus a soft block, and a lot of individuals who are up at the no volley zone kind of stand there with their paddle prepared in a soft block where you want to be pushing it forward to be able to press down on the ball. I find there's a lot of kind of synergies in those conversations with people that are struggling to handle pace around the no volley zone. I find that really connects, as well as almost we always talk about like following the ball or following our partner on the court, but like setting yourself up to be successful on how you want to play that next ball is no different than an outside blocker setting the edge, right? You don't want to be kind of reaching, and we used to call those flow box blocks or drift blocks, right? A lot of people play defense like they drift block or they float block, right? So we can really start to have that translate to people that kind of get that concept.
Well, I love that. And maybe that's encouraging to someone listening, Cam, because the goal of the podcast is very simple. It's not to monetize the channel in any way. It's just to get the word out, to spread the love. And I woke up in January with a sense of responsibility to try to give something back to the game. And I'm not going to be a Cam Taylor or a Ken Pekarsky. I'm not good enough to coach or train or teach. But if I can somehow motivate just one person that's listening today through this podcast, and maybe something you say, to pick up a paddle, for the first time and try the game, I think then I'll be happy. It's all I'm looking for. The one comment that says, "Hey, I heard the podcast, I gave it a try, and I loved it." So I think, people maybe misinterpret the fact that, oh, I've not played any racket sports, I probably wouldn't be any good at pickleball. So I'm really glad you went there today in the volleyball. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, Mike, just on that one point there, I think that's such an interesting comment that you have there, because I have so many people that come up and say, well, I'm not going to be as good as my friends because I haven't played tennis or I haven't played another sport. And I mean, my favorite comeback at that point is, well, great, you don't have any bad habits yet. So here we go, right? Like, yeah, so yeah, I think you're on the right path there, and I think that's a great message you're trying to put out.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, because I brought some really bad pond hockey, not even real hockey, Cam, but pond hockey habits to golf, and they haunt me today. I mean, I look a little bit. Happy Gilmore had nothing on me. I mean, absolutely nothing on me when it comes to my golf swing. So, yeah, it's a great start to the conversation. I appreciate all of that, and I really appreciate you touching on how other sports can, in fact, help you get off the court and get going on this game. So, well, listen, Rally 2, let's get into it. This is just the greatest game in the world. I'm going to start with that. I'm sure you would agree with that. Tell me how it started for you. In other words, did you find it, Cam, or did it find you? And do you remember maybe your very first game, and hopefully the person or people that kind of brought you into the game? You've brought so many in. You've helped so many grow and learn and fall in love with it. But what's your story as far as pickleball and the start that you had with it?
Yeah, it's really easy for me to remember because he won't let me forget that he's responsible for everything that I do and keeps asking for royalties on all of my business. But it's it's my uncle Scott. So he lives down in Woodstock, and even though he's of that generation ahead of me, him and I were always very competitive with each other growing up. So whether it was baseball, whether it was golf, whether it was, hey, let's go to the beach, and all of a sudden we're throwing a frisbee around and this becomes into some kind of competitive game, there was always something. And he kept talking about this silly game called pickleball, and no interest in it. And finally one night he kind of wore me down, where he said, I don't know what no idea what this game is, but I'm gonna kick your butt at it, right? And I went out and
Right.
happened to get my butt kicked by all the other individuals that were on the court that had different colored hair than I had, and whatever. And yeah, I was very motivated from there. Like you said, got on the court, fell in love with it. It was a great way to. I was in that weird phase in my 20s where I was transitioning from like, hey, I was really competitive in sports, but I was kind of losing that edge, and that kind of allowed me to fuel that little bit of a fire there, which was great. And I mean, this is back in 2012 when I first started playing, and I mean, trying to find pickleball spaces at that point was difficult, right? So I was living in Salvo Beach still. Um, I would be doing like this tour of driving to Hamilton, driving to London, driving to Dorchester, to try to play. Yeah, we had to travel. Kitchener Waterloo was a big hub for us to be traveling to at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard, wasn't it, Cam? I don't think today's players, those coming into the game today with the sheer number of indoor courts, outdoor courts, there's a lot of momentum behind the game, clearly. And that's, kind of that's a redundant statement. We all get that part. But I don't think me included, I started maybe 3 years ago. And of course, I mentioned Pam Bidnost, Ryan Haynes, the Kingston Pickleball Club, and they came online, several years ago now. But it just wasn't there. And people were bringing the game back from Arizona and Florida and trying to, find ways to play, talking to cities, municipalities, trying to clean up tennis courts. It was a grind. And so, yeah, we're lucky today. And those coming into the game today are very lucky. And yeah, I appreciate that. We all have that person. And it was actually Pam Bidnos for me. She was a neighbor and a friend that brought me into the game.
Right.
And do you think on that note, Cam, was there something about the name that held it back? I mean, it started, as we both know, back in 65 in Bainbridge Island with the guys and the kids and whacking the ball around. But do you think if it had been called, kill ball or beat your buddy, or like, I want, did you think the name in any way held it back, or do you, because I think there was a time when people were, I wouldn't say embarrassed, but a bit awkward, do you play pickleball? And there just seemed to be this, nah, it's not for me. And
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I don't know if it held it back, but I do think it provided a hurdle for people to start trying to play the game, right? Like, so I don't know that it held it back, but it definitely was one of those things. Like, it was almost like became a little bit of a secret club that you had to like know how to get into it to start with. And I can remember telling people, and you kind of mentioned earlier in in our conversation where you were saying, once you step on the court, like you better be prepared. And it was the same thing. And even though social media and the influences were quite different, like as soon as you started playing, you're like, I can remember talking to my mom, and she's like, I never see anything about pickleball on social media. I'm like, well, start playing, and that's all you're going to see, right? Because it just changes who your friends are, who your contacts are, what you're kind of searching and following. Um, but yeah, like I don't know that the name necessarily held it back, but I do think what it did is it provided almost like an excuse for people not to try the game, right? That were kind of like, hey, like sitting on the fence, or this is an old person's game, or why would I play a stupid game? It's called pickleball, whatever, right? But it also like once you started playing, then it's like you're part of the club and you embrace that name and you love it and you love the unique aspect of it, right? I think that's where anyone who plays pickleball at this point would probably not want that name to be changed because that's part of the identity of the whole game, right?
yeah, it is. It's one of those words. I don't know if this, not sure if this happens to you, but every once in a while, maybe it's just the way my brain doesn't work the way it should. But I find words odd sometimes. Of sometimes makes me chuckle. I don't know why. And when you say pickleball, like if you just say it as a standard, if you don't use it in a sentence, if you just say the word pickleball, it's just got such a fun ring to it. And yeah, I agree. I think you try changing that name, it'd be a mutiny at the high seas. It wouldn't go well. So yeah, it's great. I talked to someone in the UK, Cam, when I first started the podcast about a month ago, and I asked him. It was Patty Hunter Murphy, who runs the Senior Pickleball Tips Facebook group, and I think he's well over 140,000 people now that kind of follow him along each day and each week. And I asked him, coming from a 50-year tennis background, what he thought the success in the game was, what was driving the growth, and he really tied it back to the length of the game. And I'd love your insight on that. We go into a social play, let's say on a Tuesday, meet a couple of new people, make friends quickly, get out, play 11, 12, 15 minutes. We come off the court, we're chatting, and then we rotate back in. Or would you agree with that the length of the game is partly due, is playing a role in its success at this point?
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective, especially for some individuals. Like, I think this is where the transition and kind of the image that was being presented about pickleball is like, hey, like when you're ready to retire from squash or tennis, because those matches would just be generally longer, right? So when you're ready to retire, you can go play the shorter game. But what it also does, I mean, in the open kind of presentation that pickleball originally was, when we were showing up to our clubs and you were dropping in and you would rotate, which is kind of like what pickleball was when you first started. There was no booking your own courts, and there wasn't really programming for this skill level and that skill level. It was like, hey, play starts at 9 o'clock and it goes till 12 o'clock, and you line up, and they have different ways to kind of manage that. I mean, I think that's where that whole social aspect of pickleball really took off, right? And created this climate of, like you were saying, it's not just that, you become addicted to the game and you play in your life around, but your social circles completely change, right? And my wife and I talk about this all the time, is like, we really struggle to connect with people outside of our pickleball group as a separate social group at this point, because I mean, especially from a work standpoint, but even like a recreational choice standpoint, there's very few things that we have the time to be able to do outside of pickleball. So that social group, that social network changes, and I think part of that is speaking to what he was talking about with the length of the game, where you could go on any given day, and let's say that you were to play 3 hours of pickleball. If you're doing your math on 12-minute games plus breaks and rotations, hit 8 to 10 games in that, and you could have three different people on the court with you in all of those games, which is just such a cool aspect of that.
Yeah, what a great point you've made about that social network, though, and I would echo that 100%, Cam. This morning, we had dinner, last Friday with a guy that I just met and his wife, and I'm playing with him on Tuesday now. It's just click, 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 and yeah, our entire network is sort of evolving now around pickleball. My wife plays very socially. In fact, I'm not convinced that her and the girls keep score. It's like it's that much fun. There's it's as Ken said to me in his podcast, that's a hit and giggle game, and they love it, and they have probably more fun than everybody else that's at the club that morning. But she came home one day, and I've mentioned this previously, but it's worth repeating. And she says to me, the girls and I are thinking of going to Iceland. And as most husbands would do in that moment, I nodded and said, well, that's nice. And well, geez, if they didn't do it, and these were people that had just met playing pickleball a couple months previous. So off to Iceland, these 5 or 6 women go, and they shared accommodations and rented a car and drove around Iceland for a week, and Cam, none of that happens without this game, none of it. And so when you start talking about that, and I guess, to make the point one more time here, the goal of the podcast is to get the person listening right now to pick up a paddle and give it a try, because yeah, it's a game, and this is what we whack around. It's a little wiffle ball with a bunch of holes in it, and that's part of it, and that's enormously fun. I mean, I love it, but I really do love the social side and the people that I've met, and it just seems that there's a process of friendship that happens so much quicker at pickleball than it would, say, through a work environment or almost any other sport, that I've been involved in my life. It just seems to be an almost immediate connection to people. So yeah, great points. Well, thanks for all that. I love it. And do you get a chance to play at all? I mean, just play for fun. Is that forget the competitive. Do you ever just go out and play for fun? Is there time for that?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to figure out how to carve out more of those times, more of those opportunities for us as we kind of go through here. Um, there's one of the battles that I'm constantly fighting is, I mean, we all love this game pickleball. We all love the opportunities that it provides. Hey, I don't want it to start to feel like work, right? And there's times where it starts to border on, hey, this is work. And I mean, like most of us in our working backgrounds, we don't necessarily enjoy going to work all the time, right? And it's a fight to make sure. So we're trying to find the opportunities that my wife and I get to go and play. We try, she's setting up groups to start to try to go and play. I'm trying to find opportunities to go and play. I'm still in that weird phase where, like, I still think I can be super competitive, and then I have to remember that I probably can't be, and and try to balance that as part of that. But yeah, I do like to be on the court. I like to get a hit in, but doesn't happen as often as I would like it to at this point.
Yeah. Well, I'm convinced. I'm 59, Cameron, sitting here today, and I came to the conclusion, probably in my mid 40s, that the brain and the body do not age at the same pace. It's incredibly unfair, especially to men. I think women are smarter about it. I think they recognize that, okay, my time has come and gone. Not us guys. We're still thinking. My brain's about 37, probably. My body's definitely, well, my body's probably 63, but my brain, it's 37. I keep trying to tell myself I can play pickleball for 6 hours a day and still walk the next day. And yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. Yeah, I just love it. So that's great. Well, thanks for all that. Well, listen, let's get into Rally 3, because that's where I want to spend most of our time. I am intrigued by your family business, your model. We come from a family business background. My wife and I went to work every day for 30 years together, came home together, ate dinner together, spent our entire life together running a family business. And so I have a sense of what that's all about. And I wouldn't have traded it for all the money in the world, Cam. I just wouldn't. It was just the greatest experience for me and for her. And it was her parents' business. We sold heating and cooling product, and loved every minute of it. But it is a unique relationship. And I'd like, spend a bit of time explaining how Taylored Pickleball came to be. When did that seed get planted, and what were the steps that you and your wife and ultimately, and I really appreciate you complimenting your team as well, because for Francis and I, 50 years in business, Cam, you'd never hear us say we had anyone that worked for us. We had a culture of working with us, and it was just something that her parents drilled into us when we first started. We carried that culture forward. It was very important to us to speak in those, in that language, as opposed to for and with. And you change that one word, and it changes the entire relationship that you have with your team. And we had about 55 or 60 people that came in and worked with us every day. And so we sold that business in 2017, and have enjoyed a little more time to play pickleball. But yeah, I'd love to hear your story on that, if you don't mind.
Oh, it's great. So like I mentioned, I started playing pickleball in 2012. I played in my first Canadian Nationals in 2013, right, which was out in Abbotsford, BC. My uncle Scott, who I learned the game from, him and I took a road trip, and we went out there and kind of hit the national parks and finished in Abbotsford and played in there, and just like some experience to, like, at that point, nationals was way more open than it is. So there's a lot of Americans that were coming up from Seattle and Washington State and all that. which was great. So it kind of opened us up to like what the game could or should feel like. Um, Coming back from that, 2014, 2015, there's like pickleball was still really kind of green, and like we were talking about, kind of that climate of secrecy and like nobody wanting to talk about it. So like there was no coaching going on. Everyone was figuring out everything as it was going, and then maybe as you started to be a little better on the court or you started to win more games, people would be, asking you some questions. Hey, like, hey, is there something that you're doing that I'm not doing? And you know, that's when the coaching brain of, and my background of what I was doing starts to trigger a little bit here. But at that point, to ask somebody to pay you money for that was like not happening, right? It was a really interesting climate that was being created. People wanted information, but either there was no market for that still, or the market hadn't evolved, so it was still trying to work through those processes a little bit. But then coming into 2016, 2017 is when, that transition to, there was some coaching products starting to be put out of the States. We had a couple individuals that were starting to do things in Canada here. So the opportunity to start hosting like group clinics or working with a pickleball club, because some of the more bigger centers were starting to have pickleball clubs being coming established at that point. And you could put on some things. And again, like from where the business is currently to where it was back then was still like extremely different. But you know, $15 for a private lesson or $20 for a private lesson, which was really just kind of getting people used to the process of exchanging money for this service. And 2018, my wife and I started, we moved to Collingwood. We started a not for profit pickleball club at that point. So we started the Georgian Triangle Pickleball Club, which is still running at this point, to fill a void kind of in the community. And it also created an opportunity for us to start to experiment with some of our programming that we wanted to do. We started to run tournaments. We started to have a captive market that we run, a captive market that we could start to run clinics and private lesson opportunities. And I worked with the facility at Blue Mountain there as well. So we had a lot of options. At this point, our business was still really an eye business. It was like Cam Taylor on the court. My wife, she was on maternity leave at the time, and we kind of managed the pickleball club um, at that point. And I was still working full time in restaurant management. Um, and then, as much as, COVID has been negative for a lot of individuals, it was actually really positive for us because it gave us some time to reflect on where we were kind of at and what we wanted to do from a business standpoint. So, just going into COVID, prior to it happening, I was getting really busy with pickleball. I was traveling more. Um, it was great to have the opportunity to go to different communities all across Ontario. I was even starting to explore some communities outside of Ontario at that point. And we were kind of at the point where it was like, hey, is this a leap that we take? Like, do we really believe that pickleball could be something that I could do or we could do full time? And COVID kind of pushed us in that direction. Why not? Like, been out of work. We're obviously everyone was out of work, especially in the restaurant industry at that point. And then coming back, with full steam ahead out of COVID. Relaunched the business where I was full time in it, and very quickly we recognized that there was a bigger opportunity, that it couldn't just be about me being on the court, and we needed to expand into that we business. And I mean, Ken Pekarsky was a great individual early on. We also brought Corey Osborne on as well, and Corey and Ken were instrumental in us taking our business from that I to our we business. Um, and it's just kind of gone from there. The next couple years after that, out of 2020, we expanded our team to have different regions. We still have a lot of those original team members involved with us at this point. We went through some health issues with my wife, which during that process and that time, Nadine came more into the business. And as part of that process, she's now our full-time director of operations. And really, probably to 80% of the people that deal with tailored pickleball, she is the business, right? And right, she's manages a lot of the stuff that we see, and then I'm the on court piece of what we do at this point. So we've really been able to take like what we were doing with just myself, and then kind of work to expand it. And then like there was just been this huge shift in these about the last 18 months, 24 months specifically in Ontario, where facilities are opening up everywhere. And I mean, you know, anybody and everybody that you talk to is probably going to be talking about, you know, the facility boom that's going on and how this is going to work. And I mean, you could probably run multiple podcasts and just on the shape of what that's going to mean and look like, right? But for how we do is we need to continue to evolve our business where, you know, what we used to do is we used to have our team and our pickleball family that would travel to communities. Well, now some of these communities don't need us to travel to teach them pickleball or learn to plays anymore, or early beginners, because we have so many great coaches out there that are able to do certain levels now. And we need to figure out how we evolve, and that's kind of where our camps, our campcations, and our vacation businesses really started to step up. Is that, hey, there's this opportunity that we have coaches introducing the game, which is great, and we have kind of that next step. So if you think about like a learn to play being a 101, coaches are really great at doing 101s and 102s, which would kind of be the next step. But then in that, you know, advanced beginner plus intermediate phrase is where we kind of are finding, hey, this is our niche, and these individuals are looking for more, right? An hour and a half clinic is great, but we want longer experiences, right? We want higher bang for our bucks. We want, you know, more of a premium experience. And then that's where we've started to shift a lot of our energy and focus. And out of that, we kind of have three streams that have developed, and we have our high performance camps, and our camps are usually 2-day camps. So, you know, Mike, if you were to sign up, you would sign up for, you know, a 2-day camp. You would participate on 2 different days, gives you an opportunity to kind of diffuse the knowledge a little bit more. It's great. It allows us to have a lot of time on the court together. Um, we have campcations, which are a little bit of our hybrid model. So they're not like a full all-inclusive vacation where you think that your flights, you know, your food and your excursions and your travel and your hotel, all that's included in our vacations generally, right? The campcations are more Canadiana based. They're, you know, destinations that, you know, Canadians are generally interested in traveling to anyway, and they're looking for pickleball opportunities, and you know, we kind of set those up. So it's, you know, this summer we're really excited. We have PI, we have Quarter Deck, which is in Nova Scotia. We have the Yukon, and then we have Okanagan Valley, and those are our 4 campcations that we're running this year over the summer. All locations that people are looking to go to and travel to anyway, and then figuring out, well, hey, we want to play pickleball, and oh, here's a great opportunity that we can still learn and have people to play with. So we kind of facilitate those. So those would be our campcations, and then we have our vacation stream as well, which is big focus on the Caribbean. People looking to travel in the general, you know, the Novembers to Februarys, that kind of time frame in the Caribbean. So we do like Mexico and Punta Canas were our original standard ones. We're building upon those. We're adding a Turks and Caicos as well as a Jamaica into that mix this upcoming season. Then we do outside of that, we've gone to Croatia. We did a Croatia experience, which was unbelievable. We're just about to launch the Croatia 2027, which is going to be great. We fly to Italy at the end of May, so we're doing an Italy one at the end of May. And then in 2027, we'll be launching a Portugal and Spain one. So yeah, there's just a lot of really cool opportunities coming up. Yeah.
God, Cam, I was going to try to convince you that selling furnaces for a living was the most exciting career one could have,
Oh yeah.
but I'm gonna let that one go. I think I'll park that attempt. Yeah,
Yeah.
what a life, what a career, and what a way to do it. And congratulations on all of that. You've just put together, I think, what we're all looking for, you know, and the ability to plug in perhaps to what you're offering. There's not just one item on the menu, if you will, and I love that about what you've done there. And I would just, you know, I want to mention Nadine as well, because she's somebody that I've not connected with directly, but indirectly. And she's just fascinating, you know, at her job. She's just a great person to have out there, and appreciate you mentioning her as well today. And I think one of the hard things in a family operation, Cam, is to, you know, step back and trust. And I say that carefully, but you know, when it's your baby, and it was our baby, and maybe a little different for us in that her parents had started it, so we felt a strong sense of responsibility to them as well. as ourselves and growing the company and growing the business. And so, we needed to allow that to happen, and it really was an important moment in our business. So it's great that you're there and you're doing it and you're seeing the benefits of it. So congratulations on that. Yeah, what a story. What a story. Appreciate all of that. It's just great. I think I'm watching the clock, so I'll be very careful. I promise to try to get you out of here
No
in
worries.
35 or 40, and we're just bumping up against 40.
Okay.
So just a couple of final questions, Cam. I'd love your insight on, and I'll give them to you both at the same time. One is, how important is that relationship on the coaching side? I want to get back to that just briefly, but I've asked this of other people on the show, and I'm interested in your insight. But how important is that relationship between, whether you call it a client or a student or a player, and that coach? Because I had an experience that didn't go particularly well with a coach, and he's a great coach, knows what he's doing, great player. It was me. We just didn't connect, and so for those listening that may have tried coaching in pickleball at one point and it didn't quite work, the connection wasn't there, they didn't get the benefit of what they were hoping to get. I'd love your thoughts on the important role that the relationship between coach and student or player plays. And also, do you see AI? We mentioned it out of the gate. I'd asked ChatGPT about you, and I'm wondering where you see AI potentially fitting into coaching, not necessarily in the moment, but perhaps down the road. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on both of those.
Yeah, great. No, so first off, I mean, I think to answer your first question, I think it's important to keep in mind like how, yeah, like, I'm sorry that you had a negative experience to start with a coach. I mean, that can potentially, for certain individuals, if that negative experience was so bad, or everyone has individual triggers where they're like, well, I'm never taking coaching again. That can be such a turn off. So I hope that you're willing to explore future opportunities, and it really does depend on like, you have to build trust in a relationship with again, like, not sure that I like the word student, not sure that I like the word client, but it is really a partnership in learning, and it's really important that, especially in a private or a smaller group situation, that it's all about the learner. Too many coaches come in and, here's what we're going to learn today, Mike, here's what I want to teach you, right? But it's not about what I want to teach you, it's about what you need to learn, right? And that has to be the relationship, and that has to be part of what we're structuring when we put this together. Is if you're coming in, and especially for a private lesson where Mike comes to Cam and says, hey, I'd like to take a private lesson from you, and I'm like, great, here's what I'm going to work on for you, Mike. And you're like, well, I don't need any help with that, like, right? Well, of course that's going to be probably a tough relationship, and there's going to be no trust in there. And I mean, at some point too, when we get into it with our players, it's not just about the skills, it's about the person, and being able to take those skills and put them into play. And if there's no trust, where you're going to open up, and some of the conversations that we might need to have could be pretty vulnerable about, like, hey, I get really nervous, like, in male to male conversations there, where you tell me you get nervous in a competitive environment. You have to be pretty open with me as part of that, right? Not everyone's willing to have those conversations. So I think it's really important that you're able to create that trust. And then the challenge that we have is, and we'll go back to our vacations for a second. Our Mexico vacation in November, we had 84 students on it, right? And the ability to still make that learner centric or learner focus, where they're feeling like what we're learning is what they're learning is about what they would like to learn, and some of the opportunities that they need to improve their game, right? That's the challenge when you get into these big group environments. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're extremely successful, is that we don't make it about us, we make it about our learners. And um, yeah, like this. And then what this does, I think, is it feeds into your next question, is the role of AI is that human touch, that human connection, and that ability to still be able to have a conversation and be able to adapt on the fly. Because it's one thing for a coach or an instructor to write curriculums and then just read from it and deliver. And I mean, at some point AI is going to be able to do that, and here's what we're working on today, everyone go do it. But having that ability to have a conversation, have a recognition of what's going on the court, and then being able to adapt on the fly and put together something that's actually going to benefit your students. Where I think AI is going to fit, and I mean, there's some great tools out there right now. And I mean, neither one of us have a relationship with any of them, so we're not going to plug any of them. But like, where they can analyze video and give you a ton of data, and I could come back to you and say, hey, Mike, what we're going to do is, I know you reached out about a private lesson, but why don't you submit a video to me, and we'll analyze this video, and when we get together, we can have a quick conversation. And as our conversation comes together, I can be like, Mike, based off the video that you sent, I noticed that 2 out of 10 of your serves were applying pressure to your opponents, and on those 2 times you won the rally because of that. But every time that you didn't apply pressure on your serve, right? You weren't winning the rallies because they were able to apply pressure to you. Do you think that's something that you would like to improve upon? And you're probably going, oh, I didn't even notice. Yeah, I think that would be like, hey, if every time I'm applying pressure, maybe I should be doing that more, right? Great, right? Like, so AI can be a great tool for data, I think, right? And, the ability to expedite that process. Yeah, so I think that's kind of where I would think it's going to fit into. And, just like any good profession, if you're not using your tools that are available to you, you're probably not doing the best job. And it's just finding, like, is it the right tool for the job, right? I think is going to be the interesting piece, because I think some people are going so far that they're using this tool as an everything tool, right? Which, I mean, we can't as coaches or as professionals in this industry, we can't lose our ability to connect with our students, and I think that's one of the most important things that we do.
Yeah, well, I love all of that, and I appreciate your insight, Cam. I'm an old school sales guy, so I love looking people in the eye, and I love that human connection, that human touch, and I'm obviously at the age I'm at, I'm going to fight this and I'm going to push back, but it's here to stay. AI is here to stay, and I think to your point, there's a spot, a space, a need perhaps for it at some point in not only pickleball but in just a broad sense, and but how we use that and how we apply that, I think, is critical and it's important, and I appreciate, yeah. And I'm really happy we had a chance to get to this question about coaching, because uh, to me, there's someone listening today that either has not tried coaching, is intimidated to try it, worried that, there may be someone listening, even Cam, that says, I'm just not good enough to even, start with coaching. And I've always said there's a couple things you should do before you play pickleball. One is you should read The History of Pickleball, the book that Jennifer LaCour wrote, and get a sense of the history of this game, because I think that's important to understand the foundation to the game. And the other thing is, I think you should take at least a learn to play and then maybe a follow-up lesson after that. Get the foundation down. And because there's something I call the accidental reset at the beginner social level. And it's really fun to watch. And I see it regularly at the clubs that I play at, Cam. And that's when you've got a bunch of people that are just whacking this ball back and forth. And it's just a firefight. And then all of a sudden somebody makes a mistake and there's this accidental reset. And all of a sudden you've got the rally that goes from 3 or 4 to 6 or 7. And I think the game really starts to become, I, I think it was designed around long rallies, in my opinion. And if you can learn to get into longer rallies with this, if this can go back and forth over the net 7, 8, 9, 10 times, and you can slow it down and speed it up and get, maybe an intentional reset, you will see a side of this game that, if you're not doing that, you can't fully appreciate. So take some coaching. If you've had a bad experience, give it a second try, give it a third try, make that connection, and get out there and enjoy this great game.
Right. And I think that's so important too. Like, I mean, and that's one of the great things about pickleball is how easy it is for individuals to get started in the game. But it's also one of the most difficult things about the game, right? Is how easy it is for people to get started, because there's like, as an adult, if I wanted to learn to play hockey, because I've never played hockey, there would be a program that I would go. Like, I wouldn't just go jump out on the ice and start playing hockey with people at a pickup game, right? I would go through a program to start. If I wanted to at this point, like, as an adult, learn to play baseball or whatever sport, like, there would be like a formal process that I would go through to get started. Pickleball, it's not as well established. However, like, I mean, with facilities coming on board, it does become more established, facilities offering introductions to the game. And hey, if you sign up for a membership, you get a free learn to play, or you get a free, like, development pathway or whatever it is, right? Or a discounted one, which has been great because it's allowing this kind of plant in. The one thing that I would want to add to you, I would love for that to be changed, like coaching from a certified professional, right? Right, right. As part of it, because, like, when we run the NCCP courses, like, there's no sport that you take in Canada that you're not learning from an NCCP coach, whether that's youth hockey, whether that's youth soccer, whether that's tennis, whether that's any other sport. You can't learn this game from anybody that's not certified through the NCCP, right? And I think it's really important that they're learning on that pathway, because what that changes is when we teach people at that level, we're not just teaching them the skills and like you're talking about the accidental resets, and they're not just focused on like, hey, I should be slowing this down. We teach the why. We teach the coaches to teach the why. And if you understand the why, well, then you're going to be more motivated to try it, right? And that's such a huge like awakening for students when they start to, hey, I'm maybe going to still struggle with the what I'm trying to do, but I understand why I'm trying to do it. It makes a huge difference, right? And I think that would be a shift I would love to see in you, Mike, is in the next time you explain that to somebody, it's like, hey, they're learning the game from an NCCP certified coach.
Consider it done.
Love it.
It's a great point. It's a valid point, and appreciate it. And I knew this was going to be a great conversation. I knew I'd come out of it learning something. And so that's definitely going to be at the top of that list. And I'll be very mindful of that going forward, because if there's anything that you get too much of in pickleball, it's advice. I mean, you can't play enough, but you also can, there's just a constant flow of advice and thoughts out there in the court. And there's a lot of people that, they think they're playing at a certain level and it's a challenge and they want to share that knowledge. And it's all well-intentioned, Cam. It really is, but it can be harmful. It can be hurtful. So yeah, great points. Well, listen, I'm going to let you go here in a second. Was there anything we didn't touch on? The only thought I had was the Canadian National Pickleball League and maybe your relationship with that. Did you want to touch lightly on that and where that is? I did have a chance to meet 4 of the 6 Kawamotos a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
And had a lovely chat with Linda and Jessica and Stephanie and Matthew. And it was just a great chat with them. But I'm following that a lot closer now than I was. And I think it's something we want to promote. The podcast certainly wants to promote more of what they're doing as a league and, the important role that they're playing here in Canada. So I just wondered if there was any final thoughts or any thoughts you had on the CNPL.
The Kawamotos are the best. I mean, have a great relationship with them. Matt is one of our contracted on our vacations and stuff, contracted professionals. So Matt's come on quite a few of our vacations. He will be coming back on our vacations in the upcoming round, which is great. Long history of pickleball with the Kawamotos, which is great. CNPL, I was one of the 4 original founders that started that league. Was quite involved in that for the first 2 seasons. And then, through some of my wife's health, I've had to take a little bit of a step back. And obviously with the focus on our business and stuff, I'm not anywhere near as involved in the CNPL, but still follow it. I know most of the players still, most of the team owners, and engage with them in conversations. And I'm definitely very excited for where that's going, and just seeing more opportunities for professional pickleball play in Canada is great for everybody.
Yeah. Well, listen, we all love ALW. We all love Ben Johns, but Captain Kawamoto, we've got to pound our chest here and raise the flag, if you will, in the pickleball court. Cam, we've got some great players in this country. And I get a chance to talk to, I think, 3 people directly connected through the league in the coming weeks ahead. And I'm excited to learn more and share more, because I would say to you that going into my club today and talking to the average pickleball player and asking him about, if I said, what is CNPL, they might not even know, and I think we're most aware it's there, but I think we're going to see a shift in that. The social media is going to gain a lot of traction here in the next couple of years with it, and doing a great job. And I just love it. The bit I've learned about it in the last few weeks, I've really enjoyed. So
I'm not sure who you're speaking with, but I know everyone who's there, they're all pulling in the same direction, and they're doing a really nice job creating a presence, and they've done some really nice things with alignments and partnerships to hopefully explore and grow that reach. And I mean, we've also got a lot more buy-in from the top players that are participating in that league right now. So it does become more of a defining aspect. If you want to be considered a pro in Canada, you are participating in that league now, which is great. And I mean, they continue to do great things, and I think it's only good for the game of pickleball if they do. So
yeah, it really is. Well, listen, thanks for all this morning. Any final thoughts you wanted to share? I appreciate every minute you've given me today. So thank you so much.
No worries. Again, I think happy to be involved and have a conversation with you. I think kind of your meaning and your path is great. And, kudos to you and the respect that you deserve as well, Mike.
Well, I appreciate it. Just trying to grow the game that I love. And it's funny, whatever that moment was in January, Cam, that I mentioned earlier, that I woke up and felt I need to find a way to give something back. And I know my limits. And so this might be it. I may be in over my head on this even, but I'm going to keep trying to get the word in. If I get one comment one day saying I've played this game because of your podcast, then I'm going to hang up my headphones and be really happy about that. So,
Awesome.
and I will mention to our, our friend Ken about his great veneers for sure, 100%, because he deserves to be poked as much as he pokes me and you and everyone else that he encounters.
Best veneers in pickleball, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, enjoy the rest of your day and all the best to what you're up to. And you will find me on one of those vacations one day. Fun. Well, listen, Cam, enjoy your day. Appreciate all this. And thank you again.
Thanks. Talk to you.